possibility of certain religious narratives reasserting themselves in secular guise has been overlooked. And if you look at what's going on in the Nordic area, in recent years, Sweden and Norway have passed laws prohibiting prostitution. Some research shows that this is no doubt a resurgence of Christian morality under the cover of feminism. So we can look at some other phenomenon in the same way. I had another example in mind, which I just forgot for a moment. But if we look at for instance, the belief in global warming, there is a significant body of research now that says that also can be explained, okay, as a reassertion of a kind of belief system using a similar narrative.
Yeah, I agree with you in many ways. And for example, secular Europeans, from what I can tell, have high rates of belief in the paranormal and so on, although I haven't really seen good data on that. Gallup has very good data on paranormal beliefs in the United States. I haven't seen it comparable for Europe, and if anybody knows, please tell me. But things are complicated. These are not simple progressions. There's always trends going both ways. So when I'm looking at our broad patterns, and Europe is just far more secular than the United States, and the patterns do generally hold. It's more secular and more progressive. So in general, these things do go with one another. Although there are always are exceptions. Yeah,
there's one other tendency I'd like for people to be aware of, and that is there has been a spate of research centered in the Nordic area, but including all of Europe, which purports to show that religiosity makes people live longer, and this is just a result of bad research. And I have told these people they are incorrectly analyzing their results, and they're not looking at the right variables, because if you look at the right variables, it shows that health goes down as religiosity goes up.
Yeah, that's one reason. That's one of the reasons I did this mega study, which using whole nations and look at their overall level of religiosity and mortality rates. And it's the most religious countries in the West that have the highest mortality rates.
My name is Ellis Wallner. I'm vice chairman of the Swedish Humanist Association. You said a few times during your talk, why is the U.S. so different? And you gave one reason about the question of universal health care. I come originally from the U.S. I moved to Sweden back in 1972. I'd suggest a few other reasons. Quite a few of the early colonists in the U.S. were fleeing from religious oppression, but they also had their own very dogmatic religious beliefs. And I think that might be part of the reason those groups that have continued. But I think other things are the abysmal standard of education in the United States today. In general, I say that despite some of the best universities and so on being there, the overall standard of education, I think, is much below that of Western Europe, as an example. I think also the media. But maybe most important of all is the enormous isolation of the United States. It's less than a fifth of the population that even has a passport. The unawareness of what's going on in the rest of the world and all, I think, is abominable. And I don't know if you would agree with me on these observations.
That's actually an interesting thing. I'm going to go look into that passport thing, because I bet you there are published rates on that. It would be interesting to see if there's a correlation. I haven't thought of that before. Yeah, but I'm not sure what it is. But that's an interesting point. Yeah, but it is true that one of the reasons the United States is religious is the fault of Europe, because you exported your religious nuts to the colonies. And that may be one of the foundations of what's going on. That would help explain why the United States has been resistant to progressive policies, because it is so religious, which is because of the, a few centuries ago, Europeans started getting tired of religious strife and basically said to a lot of the people, if you don't like things, go over there. So you've been stuck with that since. But I did want to bring up something real quick, is that I didn't point it out. There is the idea that religious freedom, the constitutional separation of church and state in the United States, is a reason for our being religious. That the state churches suppress religion because people aren't interested in them. And that's actually been disproven. That's not true. The Sacred and Secular was the work they did in that book is very important on that issue.
My name is Bill from the Netherlands. I'm a little bit surprised by your shyness of your presentation. You concluded secular countries can do good. Shouldn't you present it as religious countries can't do good, and that way changing the dynamics.
No, but what was, I'm not sure what the question was.
You stated from your data, secular countries perform good.
Yeah.
And but isn't it better to present the conclusion religious countries can't seem to perform good?
Well, I think do both. Multiple approaches. Both are equally appropriate, because it is good to point out that the common propaganda line from religious people that religion is important for society is important to show that that's not true. But it's equally, that's a negative message. Negative messages are important, but the positive message is that secular societies are the ones that end up performing the best, and that well-performing societies always become non-religious.
In case the Hadza do not work as an example of a society without religion, I can offer another, the Piraha in Brazil, in the Amazon rainforest somewhere, who apparently have no gods, no afterlife, nothing. The Christian missionary who was sent to them wanted to tell them about Jesus. They asked him things like, did you see him? Did your father see him?
Yeah, the same thing happened to the Hadza. The Hadza, they said, could care less about the missionaries. I'd like to talk to you afterwards, so I'd like to get more information on that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just give Michael the last here.
Just for the record, for the past 200 years, it has been commonplace for missionaries and partly anthropologists to return from the middle of nowhere and tell that people down there have no religion. It's a cultural standard. It's almost an academic tradition. And then, after a while, people realized that they actually do. And the same goes with the pyramids. They were only erected due to religious arguments and religious needs, otherwise they wouldn't be there. So need to be cautious and pick other examples. I also question whether this group is without religion, and I've worked a lot in South America.
Well, I never questioned the pyramids for religious purposes.
Okay, thanks a lot to Greg, and there'll be a break now.